Morning. My name is Kelly, and I'm the pastor at Edges. I'd love to welcome you if you're here for the first time today. It's an especially good day for you to be here because there are 5 people in our family, and this is the one day of the year where we all agree to take a shower. So I do hope you'll get to meet all 5 of us, because often at this moment in Edges we talk about why it is that we've come. And I come because I am a sucker for being in the middle of the things God's doing. But just today I was thinking about why we first came, our family, 9 years ago when we moved to town. And I don't know, for the first time ever, we decided to just wait until we could see something that looked like God in the town. We knew we wanted to find a church, and we, for the first time, said we're not going to care about worship style or music style or denomination or what's close to home or where all the cool people are. We're going to just wait until we see something that it looks like God is doing. And we had neighbors. They were our next door neighbors. They had 3 children. They were about the ages of our 3 children, and they were little. Braden, our oldest, who's 19, was 10. Who's 18? He's 18. Going on 40, but that's why I said 19. He's 18. He was 10 at the time. So their kids were about our kids' ages. And in addition to their 3 kids, they were raising 3 foster children. So they had 6 children under the age of 10, and they were helping those foster children's mother die. She had terminal cancer, and they knew those kids needed to be loved through that moment, so they took them into their home with their own children. And we just knew nobody does that without God. Nobody. So we asked them, where do you go to church? And they let us hear, and one thing led to the next, and here we still are. So whatever your motivations are for being here, whether you want to be in the middle of what God does or whether Easter seemed like a good day to take a shower, it's really great to be together with you this morning. I'd like to start with a really deep Easter question. What's your favorite time of the day? Go ahead. Call out some answers. It's not a trick question. What's your favorite time of the day? Bedtime. Sunset. Somebody said, bacon. Did he say bacon? That's what I thought he said. Sometimes you can misunderstand, but nope, that was really it from the start. It was bacon. Okay. Sunset and bacon and lunchtime. Morning? Happy hour. That's another reason we go to this church. All right, what else? One more. Over here, you people are quiet. Sunrise, really. That is a perfect segue to the sermon, Lindsay. Thank you very much. All of Edges thanks you for that answer. My script actually says, funny, I don't think many of you would say sunrise while it's still dark before the sun comes up. Usually nobody wants to be up at the time before sunrise, the last hours that are just before dawn, while it is still dark. These hours are usually a little too early for even the early birds. They're a little too late even for the night owls. If you have to be up at this time of the night, the wee hours before morning, you've usually got a good reason, like you're an insomniac. Or you have something else urgent that has to be done before your boss finds out. Or maybe you're doing something sneaky. Nobody in our family has ever done that. I'm just saying it's a possibility. Or maybe you're carrying over something you couldn't quite put to bed the night before. Almost nobody votes for the time of the day that we would call while it is still dark. Nothing happens at this time of day, except for resurrection. Now, Easter has a lot of hoopla, a lot of expectation, a lot of adrenaline that surrounds it. So, I want to offer you the whole sermon this morning in just 7 words, in case you're about to keel out, you know. Here it is. Easter enters while it is still dark. I'd like to invite you to follow along with me in the scripture this morning. John's gospel has something to tell us about this. I don't want us to miss it. If you'd like to use a Bible on one of the tables around you, it'll be on page 624. We'll be reading from John chapter 20, starting in verse 1, or you can just follow along on the screen. See what you hear. Early in the morning on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been taken away. Now, Mary was one of those who had loved him. She was what they called a disciple of Jesus. And so the past few days had been a nightmare for everybody in that camp. All the disciples were freaked out. Her teacher was dead. And she had been there for it all. She had seen all of it, but she had been powerless to stop it. So Mary was probably up pacing at that time of day. She probably hadn't slept much at all. And I imagine there was this panic moment where she just needed to be near him one more time, even though the world was still dark. So as she goes to make her way to where she knows he is, she remembers that the world was really dark, oddly dark, at the time he had died. History tells us that the world was dark for hours on Friday when Jesus had been killed. And when that muted sun went down that day, Mary had followed his body in the dark as they carried it through the streets to the burial place. And now, it's 3 days later, and it is still dark. And so Mary comes to the tomb and she sees that the stone has been removed. And in that moment, she discovers what we know all too well. Sometimes bad can even get worse. Somebody has been messing with the gravesite. There was a huge stone and it's been moved, and now the entrance to where her teacher is just gaping open. So she's terrified, or maybe she's just numb, like sometimes these moments can be. But anyway, she steps around the stone and peers inside into the darkness. To her great dismay, she sees that something inside is glimmering. Then she realizes it's someone. No, actually, it's two someones. Two someones dressed in white, sitting right where her Jesus should be. And then, because they must have been looking at her, one of them says, "Why are you crying?" "They took my Lord," she sobs. "And I can't find him anywhere." Now, unless you've ever been at the place where you look around at your life and you can't find Jesus anywhere, unless you have ever known what it is to wake up and look out the window of your own story and realize, oh my God, why is it so dark? You may not need to finish the story. But I think most of us have been in that moment. Most of us have been in the moment that screams, this is not how it was supposed to turn out. It's the moment where all the promises seem hollow, where you feel duped by what you thought you believed. It's the moment where Jesus was supposed to pull through, where God was supposed to make everything work out for good, but all you can see is that it is still dark. That is Mary's moment. That is the moment where Easter enters. Mary looks around and she cannot find Jesus anywhere. All she sees are grave clothes. All she smells is stench. There is no good to hold on to, just empty shells. There is no sign of life anywhere. But the story continues in verse 15. As soon as she had said this, she turned around and she saw Jesus standing there, but she didn't know it was Jesus. And Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you've carried him away, please tell me where you've put him and I will get him." At first, she didn't recognize him. Sometimes Easter comes like that, in disguise. Sometimes it's a slow warm-up, but not for long. Jesus said to her, "Mary." And she turned and said to him in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Her teacher who was dead. Then Jesus said to her, Don't hold on to me, for I haven't yet gone up to my Father. But go to my brothers and sisters and tell them, I'm going to my Father and to your Father, to my God and to your God." So Mary Magdalene left, and she announced to the disciples, "I've seen the Lord." Out of nowhere, out of the darkness, Jesus calls out to Mary. On that very first day, and then in 1,000 more slow and gentle ways, Jesus said to her, "I am here. I am. All the promises that I told you about me, they were true. I am the presence that you need when you feel alone. I am the help that nobody else can give you. I am the provision that will keep you going. I am the connection that your life most needs. I am the compass for where you need to go next. I am the life you are hoping will be yours. I am." Now, what else do you need when you're stuck in the dark? Well, some of us in the room, truth be told, we're here because, like Mary, we know that Easter is the real deal because we have lived those promises. And they're promises that we could never make true ourselves, no matter how hard we tried. You got to have a God for them. We are living proof that love really will break through the darkness of loneliness or isolation. We have lived lives where love turned bad to worse toward hope. We know that love is the thing that will vaporize the strongest indifference and the worst forms of oppression. We know it. We have lived it. We have experienced real corners where love is even louder than tremendous grief, where it's longer even than awful sin. That's why some of us in the room this morning can't contain ourselves. We have learned to wait in the dark with hope. Not as a trite thing, but as a very real thing. So we say things like, it was dark. It was really dark in my life, and bad was being overtaken by worse, and Jesus seemed nowhere to be found, but he found me. He found my mom. He found my child. He found my partner. He found us. And we know he lives because his promises literally have come true in our lives. And little sidebar here, if that's you, listen, your real life stories are what help the rest of us to believe. And that's why week after week we just gather and we listen while we tell our stories. And why does that matter? Why does that matter? Well, I just don't know if anyone would believe that Jesus is still alive if the last thing he ever did was walk out of that tomb. Desperate people need the real stories of what God has been up to lately. In short, we believe Jesus because we believe you. And John's gospel knew it because it records several other living encounters with Jesus. And then it says the weirdest thing. In chapter 21. Oh, Jesus did many other things as well. If all of them were recorded, I imagine the world itself wouldn't have enough room for all the scrolls that would be written. Even the whole world couldn't hold all the stories. So, some of you in this room are, in fact, the many other things that John's gospel was writing about. The rest of the story of what Jesus has been doing. So I just want to say to you, thank you for having the courage to go against the conventional wisdom that says nobody talks about their darkness. It makes you look bad. It's embarrassing. Makes you out of control. Makes you seem like you're not all together. Thanks for resisting that, for adding your prayer scrolls to the back and your personal true stories in our Sunday conversations and in your home groups. And the quiet connection that happens whether you know it or not every single time you show up someplace and be who you really are. When we do that, we remember what's really true. And what's really true is that we can't enact on ourselves the kind of grace and love and forgiveness and purpose that only God can give. That's the stuff that only comes from God. Resurrection enters from the dark. And we need to remember that. We need to hold on to those moments where dark really did turn to light, because in this life, there are always going to be more dark moments. If you're not in one now, you will be. And we will need the strength of Easter for the weakness of the next moments. You see, there are people all around, literally all around you right now, who have lost their way and who are living in long patches of wrenching darkness, and they need our gentle, true stories of hope and life, the kind that comes quietly, surprisingly, little bit by little bit, while it is still dark. And that brings me briefly to the ones of you who in this moment may feel like Easter has left you in the dust. Many, even many in this room, are still this morning in pre-resurrected places. Places of disquieting anger or unrelinquished pain. Absolute can't see your hand in front of your face darkness. You're perched outside the places in your life where you thought Jesus would be, where you were sure he promised to be, only you can't see him anywhere, and you are too tired or too disappointed or too confused to keep on looking. Well, Easter still whispers to you. Because if Jesus really is alive, then Jesus really is alive for you too. It's all of us or none of us, friends. God either loves all of us or God loves none of us. So you hold on. And yet the promises of the Bible and the stories of those around you might be stinging reminders to you that you feel left or deserted. Or they can be lifelines that you hold on to while you wait. So I vote that we don't rob Easter of its real reason, that we let Easter be for those of us who need it, that we don't dumb it down with some kind of giddy emotion. Because the darkness, even if you don't feel it personally right now, the darkness that is still left in the world, it isn't just in the air. It feels like pudding in our lungs some days. And that makes it hard to find oxygen. And when you're almost out of oxygen, that can make you feel panic, or it can lull you to sleep. I would suggest that most of us are in one state or the other. But Easter is a game changer. Easter enters where it is still dark, from the pitch black corners where nobody would call themselves a survivor. From the holes of our irreparable choices where shovels of dirt keep piling on top of your life. From under the covers where there are whole systems of sickness that have whole communities buried. You just wait and see. That darkness, that specific darkness, all of the specific darkness, that's a portal for the light. It's a place, the darkness is a place not just where we turn in for the night, it's where we get woken up. There is a love that is stronger, that is longer, and that is louder, and it is for us. It is the resurrected Christ. So let it be. Amen.